When you hear the story I'm about to tell you, you may think it's a story about one person's struggle against great odds, or you might think it's a story about life's hard twists and turns. But what I hope you hear is a story of hope. A story about how we can't do everything, but all of us can do something. My story starts back in the late 60s. I was Vietnam era soldier, and our company was marched very regularly down to the base hospital where we were volunteered to donate a unit of blood for our buddies in combat. It was a habit that was pretty hardwired into me for 3 years. And when I finished my enlistment, I continued the habit, maybe not as regularly as I had when I was in the service. But I had a schedule and I stuck with it, but life kind of sneaks in on you sometimes. That good habit faded, and finally I was too busy to donate blood. This story of a faded habit is probably familiar to many of us. You know, we get a good thing going and it just seems to fade into everyday life, and we lose track of the focus that we had. My story picks up in September of 2016 when my Beth, wife of 53 years, was diagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome. We call it MDS for short. And it's a pretty ugly disease. It's when the bone marrow, that spongy material in the middle of our bones, forgets actually how to produce healthy blood cells. We probably take things like that for granted. The blood is produced and blood pumps through our bodies, but then one day you get an education like we did, and it becomes a pretty complicated and precarious process. We knew the future was limited. At first, Beth was symptomatic. She had weakness from lack of red blood, and she had sniffles and colds, and finally pneumonia from lack of white blood cells that fought the infection. And then platelets started to fade, and that brought on spontaneous bleeding. There is no cure for MDS, so we knew that our options were limited. At first, Beth was symptomatic. She was weak from lack of red blood cells, and then she became susceptible to colds and finally to pneumonia because of her low or lacking or absent even white blood cells. And eventually the platelets fizzled out, and she had spontaneous bleeding. It was not a good time, and the only thing that was keeping her alive was transfusions, while we sort of held on hoping that there would be a miracle cure in her lifetime. During those 11 months of Beth's struggle, she eventually came to a time when she would spend 4 hours a day, every other day, in infusion. She was transfused with first red blood, and then when the platelets started to fail, she was given platelets in her. And I renewed my pledge then and there that I was going to replace all 205 units of bags that desperately needed. She was given a total of 205 units the blood and platelets by people like you and me that had no idea where that blood that they donated would go. And unless you're an organ donor, I don't think there is a higher or more selfless thing you can do than giving blood or platelets. But in spite of all the medical miracles and power and knowledge that there was, and the faithful contributions of everybody with blood, her time ran out. She passed on August 31st, 2017. First of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you. And you may have been one of those who gave that priceless extra day of life. It's my lovely life. During this time, I've resumed my donating blood and eventually platelets, and I was having a hard time keeping up with Beth's pace that she had set. But I realized it would probably take me years to completely pay back all that had been given to her. But I pledged that I wanted to do that. As life does from time to time, a new twist came a day before Beth's funeral. I had been seeing a pulmonologist for a couple of years, and on that day, on that appointment that I figured was going to be just another routine checkup, he lowered the boom on me and said that I was officially a victim of idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. It's a progressive and incurable disease of the lungs. So the next time I went in to give blood, you know, they always ask you, has your health changed significantly since you donated last? And, you know, I thought, well, sure, I had, so I confessed that, and they said, oh, you can't donate anymore. And so that was the end of my donating. So I'm a little short on that pledge that I made to myself. And so I ask you, can you spare a pint or two? And at the same time impact the life of someone that you'll never know the name of, but who will be so grateful to you for what you did. So for all those that are going to receive the blood donation that you'll make, whoever they are, thank you. Thank you.